All right, let's talk about the US green card system. I know. Navigating it can feel like you're trying to solve a massive, complicated puzzle with half the pieces missing. But what if you had a map? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to create that map, breaking down the whole world of employment-based visas into clear, simple paths. Okay, let's dive in. First things first, let's look at the big picture. The US government only sets aside a certain number of employment-based green cards every year. And as you can see, the vast majority of them, the lion's share, are split evenly between the top three categories: EB1 for priority workers, EB2 for advanced professionals, and EB3 for skilled workers. They each get a big slice of the pie, plus they get to soak up any leftover visas from the smaller, more niche categories, EB4 and EB5. And what is that certain number? It's roughly 140,000 a year. Now, that might sound like a lot, but that's the total pool for the entire world, for all the skilled workers, professionals, investors, you name it. It's definitely a competitive landscape, which is exactly why figuring out which category you fit into is so important.
And that really is the key question, isn't it? This isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. Each of these categories is its own distinct path, really, designed for totally different people with different skills and accomplishments. So let's walk through them one by one.
We're going to start at the very top of the food chain with Path 1, the EB1 category for priority workers. This is the most exclusive club, and for the people who can get in, it's often the absolute fastest way to get a green card. To put it bluntly, this category is for the superstars. We're talking about people who have proven, without a doubt, that they are at the very top of their profession. Think Nobel Prize-winning researchers, top executives at multinational companies, or people with just truly extraordinary abilities. For the most popular lane in this category, the EB1A for extraordinary ability, this is the gold standard. You have to prove sustained national or international acclaim. It's not enough to just be good at what you do. You have to be famous for it, recognized for it, on a huge scale. So how on earth do you prove that? Well, if you win something huge like a Nobel Prize or an Oscar, you're pretty much automatically in. For the rest of us mortals, you have to build a case by meeting at least 3 out of 10 specific criteria. And some of these are more within reach than you might think. We're not just talking about movie stars. This could be a brilliant coder whose work is now the foundation for an entire industry, or a scientist whose research has been cited 1,000 times. And this is the absolute game changer for the EB1 path. If you qualify for extraordinary ability, you can petition for yourself. You don't even need a job offer. And even better, you get to skip the entire labor certification process, which can save you months, sometimes years of waiting. It's basically the immigration system's express lane. Okay, next up is Path 2, the EB2 category. This one is designed for professionals who have advanced degrees, or what the government likes to call exceptional ability. Now, this category casts a much wider net than EB1. It covers people with master's degrees or PhDs, or folks who have a really unique expertise in science, art, or business that would be a huge benefit to the United States. A super common point of confusion is, what's the real difference between EB2 and EB3? Well, this slide breaks down the key educational difference perfectly. For a standard EB2 case, you usually need a master's degree or higher. But, and this is a big but, a bachelor's degree plus 5 years of what's called progressive work experience can often count as the same thing. That just means you are taking on more responsibility over time. By comparison, the EB3 professional category just requires a bachelor's degree for a job that needs one. Now, unlike that EB1 express lane, most EB2 and EB3 cases have a big hurdle to clear first, the PERM labor certification. This is where your employer basically has to advertise your job to the whole country and prove to the government that they couldn't find a single qualified U.S. worker to hire instead of you. It's a complex, time-consuming process, but it's a standard part of the journey for most people. But here's where it gets really interesting. What if there was a way to get the benefits of this advanced professional category, but you could skip needing an employer and that whole PERM headache altogether? Well, there is. It's called the National Interest Waiver, or NIW. Think of it as a special shortcut within the EB2 category. If you can make a strong case that what you do is so important to the United States, like you're working on life-saving medical research or groundbreaking tech, you can ask the government to just waive the job offer and PERM requirements. It's an incredibly powerful option that lets you file all on your own. All right, on to Path 3, the EB3 category. This is one of the biggest and most common pathways to a green card. It covers a huge range of skilled workers and professionals. This is really the backbone of the entire employment immigration system. It's for folks who have a permanent job offer from a U.S. company for a position that needs either a specific skill set, a certain amount of experience, or a college degree. The EB3 category itself is kind of split into three different lanes. You've got skilled workers for jobs that need at least 2 years of experience, then you have professionals for jobs that need a bachelor's degree, and then there's a third lane for other workers. Now, it's really important to note that this other workers subcategory has its own separate and usually much, much longer waiting line. So beyond those main three paths, there are a couple of more niche categories and some universal challenges that really anyone applying for a green card needs to know about. First, you have the EB4 category for special immigrants. This is a collection of really specific groups like religious workers or certain longtime employees of international organizations. Then there's the EB5, the investor visa. This one is pretty straightforward. It's for people who invest a whole lot of money. We're talking at least $800,000 into a U.S. business that creates at least 10 full-time American jobs. And that brings us to the biggest hurdle for so many people, backlogs. The easiest way to think about it is like a massive traffic jam. See, there's a limit on how many green cards can be issued to people from any single country each year. So when demand from one country, usually India and China, is way higher than the supply, a huge queue forms, especially in the EB2 and EB3 categories. This can mean years, sometimes decades of extra waiting time. So, we've covered all the different paths on the map. Let's wrap things up by taking a quick look at the actual steps you'd take on the journey itself. For most people, the process boils down to these three main stages. First, there's the PERM labor certification, but only if your category requires it. Second, your employer files the I-140 petition, which is the official request to classify you as an eligible immigrant worker. And finally, once your place in line is current, you either file the I-485 form to adjust your status to permanent resident, or you go through what's called consular processing at a U.S. embassy abroad. And here's a quick cheat sheet to pull it all together. What I love about this is how clearly it shows the trade-off. See the pattern? The paths that give you the most freedom, the ones where you can petition for yourself and skip that whole PERM process, like EB1A and the EB2 NIW, they're the ones with the absolute highest standards. The more standard paths, your typical EB2 and EB3, they require an employer to sponsor you and drive the whole process. So we've laid out the roadmap, we've shown you the main highways, the shortcuts, and the potential traffic jams. Now, this is a really complex journey, and of course, this is just a starting point. You should always consult official sources like the USCIS website and talk to an immigration attorney for advice on your specific case. But the big takeaway is this. With this map in your hand, you can start thinking strategically about which path actually makes the most sense for you. The puzzle is complex, for sure, but it is solvable. The only question left is, where will your journey begin?